Alrighty, welcome to the live demo for Hoard Haggle alpha.9. Today we will be doing an application overview and showcasing kind of all of its functions, where it looks to fit into the market, how it looks to improve on its competitors, as well as some of the other features that it offers. So, Hoard Haggle is a loot generator for virtual board game and tabletop experiences. Obviously, the board game industry being around for a long time, the virtual side coming up around the early 2000s, but really exploding during COVID, where we saw kind of the community of physical board game players mix with the online community of video game players. There are a couple tools that came out that sort of converted the traditional tabletop games into almost video game like experiences while still following the rule sets of those traditional games. And as such, with these experiences, you saw a massive new market get created with these two markets getting merged. And with this market came a variety of tools that looked to make the experience even easier than it had now become. Many of those tools being generators. Now, obviously, traditionally in a tabletop or a board game, you would have a rule book and flip through those rule books and roll some dice. But now you had experiences where people were making these experiences more immersive, trying to automate these features, making them more akin to a video games user experience. And that's where these tools came into play. But as sort of time has come on and new tech has been created, especially I feel as if these tools have become quite limited. Their intuitiveness, or the lack of intuitiveness, is sort of starting to show because of their reliances on old algorithm processing. That's pulling from just a reference table, and it's really not allowing the user to have a nice flow of creation, really fit to the context of their scenario, which they can also then save and alter and reference later. So to get started, I kind of want to showcase what these competitors look like. Currently, we are looking at Hoard and Haggle, but let's go ahead and hop over to the main, the kind of the largest generator site for a loot generator. This is 5e Loot Generator, and it is the most popular with hundreds of thousands of users. And as you can see, just by looking at it, it looks quite dated. It is a very simple UI where you go through and use their presets to generate, and you're really stuck on their guidelines. What's available to you? Does this fit for my scenario? Well, it kind of fits. Let's go ahead and do that. And once I do that, it's very boring. I just click and this appears, and I'm able to download it as a JSON, but that's kind of it. It's nice that I'm able to use these hyperlinks. But let's say I refresh this. Oh, well, that's gone now. Maybe I was doing some prep work the day before and I wanted this for later. Well, I can't. Let's try another one of the popular tools. This one looks a bit nicer. It's a little bit more modern UI. But even through here, I click on generate, and I'm stuck with, this is a picture. I think I'm able to save this, so I could maybe copy this in a sense. But what happens when I refresh? Well, it's gone. What happens if I want to generate one, save it, generate a new one, compare them? These platforms don't really offer that. You would have to, maybe open a text document, do it yourself on another location. So that is where Hoard and Haggle looks to come into play. It looks to utilize modern technology, especially AI, and especially the developments of things like TypeScript and React for developing the UI and the experience, to really improve the flow and make this nice and intuitive for those users who spend a lot of time preparing their games for the people they play them with. Now, before we hop into how Hoard and Haggle generates, I kind of want to showcase what I call the orbiting features, or as they're labeled in the settings, the widgets. So on top of the generator, we offer some. The whole idea is to add intuitiveness and ease of flow for people who are functioning within these virtual tabletops. The most common thing, obviously, is rolling dice. So, let's say you're generating some loot and you want to quickly roll some dice. Well, I don't want to go to a different tab or pull out my dice. So, what can I do? Well, we offer just right down here a virtual dice roller that you can roll common dice that you see in different board games. You can roll multiple of these dice if you call to, as that's pretty common, as well as being able to roll custom sided dice in scenarios that might call for it. So, I don't know of a 35 sided dice, but if you needed it, there you go. Let's do something weird, a 73 sided dice. Let's do four of them. It's all there for you, nice, quick, and easy. Next to the dice roller, we have something called the storyteller. A lot of the times when you're using these loot generators, like I would be generating the loot from a scene, or as you can see, you can do vendors as well, generating a shop vendor for a scene. Sometimes you're forced to improvise, and people who run these tabletops and board games know all about needing to improvise. And while some people like this, others like to be prepared, and getting caught off guard can be kind of startling to them. So, what the storyteller allows them to do is, let's say they surprise me with a scenario, but I still want it to have the narrative quality that I normally bring. So let's just say we're getting ambushed by goblins. The party is ambushed by goblins. So this is something I didn't plan for beforehand, but now I just need to adapt to. I can use some of the flavor filters, so it's just going to be an ominous, tense, and then the sensory filters as well. I want to focus on the visual and auditory aspects. And then for the cost of a token, it's going to go ahead and generate a flavored description for me. So now beforehand, where I kind of would have to just go off the top of my head, now the oppressive silence of the forest deepens, twilight bleeding into the true night. Small hunched forms detach themselves from encroaching shadows. You have a nice description here you can read for the scenario. I have a nice quick button there so you can just paste in if you have to send this to somebody over text. And you could say put this into ChatGPT, and you could even maybe generate loot tables from ChatGPT. But that requires you to, one, prompt engineer something that's reliable, and two, do that consistently. So those are extra steps that add to the clunkiness that you kind of want to avoid when you're running these games. So the goal of both the generator and things like the storyteller and the dice roller is to alleviate those tension points to you as somebody running the games. Make it nice and smooth, and make it really feel like you can react to any scenario that you need to. We've gone over those two side features, and if we pop back into the settings, we can see that these are easily disabled and enabled. As much as I like offering the tools, there are certain people who might only want to use this as a generator. And as such, I wanted to allow them to really customize their experience, and if they don't want any bloat, they can get rid of it. If they just want the dice roller, go ahead, only the dice roller. So those options are there. As well, in the settings, you'll be able to see that we have a variety of appearance selections. This is just so that players are able to, pick the color scheme that they like. Some people are set on having kind of all their applications match up or fit their favorite colors, or sometimes be distinct. So kind of in theme with the tabletop board game themes, we have some various color schemes that they can choose from that dynamically and instantly apply. If they don't like what they've done, they can of course click reset, and that'll reset the page to its default state. As well as being able to quickly reference the licensing and changelog. So we operate under the SRD and Creative Commons license that Wizards of the Coast offers. Essentially, how we use this is they allow people to use their content with the proper attributions, and how we use it is we're only really pulling the items for the generation of this content. So we're not going to be using any of their content, but we're going to be transforming from their content, which is very protected by this license, and they specifically created this license for tools like this. So we're all nice and set there, proper attributions right here, easy quick links just in case people want to read up on that. So as well as that, we have our own terms and conditions as a website. Currently it's mainly just a placeholder, but that is there. Alongside this, we had the changelog, just so users can easily see the current version, anything that was recently changed or added, just so if you're caught off guard by something, you can reference that. Alrighty, so we've gone over the orbiting widgets. We've kind of showcased how these older models work. Let's showcase how Hoard Haggle actually works. Now, after talking to various users and in my own experience, there's kind of really two common types of loot generation. You have that, which is just loot generation, and this could be, a room, a group of bodies, it could be just any pile of loot. The other scenario, though, is a vendor, a scenario where you're trading with somebody. And what I found is that these kind of function the same in that there's a group of loot. Vendors tend to have some extra things added on, like, there's an NPC who is the vendor. There's generally a set location for it. There's maybe services offered. We wanted to offer some dynamic nature there, so we added the ability to choose either. So first, let's start off with just some straight loot. And, like we saw here, you would be stuck within what presets that they offer. But with Hoard Haggle, we are letting the tool work with our presets in our scenario instead. So we're flipping the how can I fit my scenario to their tool to how can the tool adapt to my scenario. So in this case, let's just do, a pack of goblins. So this pack of goblins lives in the forest and attacks travelers who look weak and open to be robbed. So something like that to flavor it. And so this is, you could expand this out to be rather long, and the more flavor you give it, the more the system is going to have to work with. But this is not where you're going to stop. You could stop just here, but now that we have the broth of our generation, we want to kind of add some spices to really give it that flair, and that's where the flavor filters come into place. So this allows you to really set the parameters of what you're generating here. If you would like, you can click divinate, and this will actually use your prompt to automatically fill these in. So if you're on a crunch, or you have kind of, the better the divination is like the better your prompt is, the better this is going to be. So if you filled this out, spent a lot of time here, go ahead, divinate. If you just are short on time, you can divinate too, but I'll show you how to do this manually first. As you can see, we have several presets, but where this expands beyond being trapped in the presets is custom tags. So in rarity, I could select multiple of these, which is good, but in my case, I'm going to create the custom tag mixed because I want mixed rarity. Item type, I could select a bunch of these because you can do multiples, or I can do mixed item type. Goblin warriors item type. For quantity, do I want a few, many, several? I could do many, or I specifically want 15 of these. So, or I specifically want a bank's vault, and it will interpret that if you would like. So really flavoring this to how I need. The value, well, let's do modest because, they might be quite poor. So let's just do modest there. Maybe we'll add a little bit of moderate in. For the vibe, this is a custom thing that we have sort of made using our own prompt engineering. But this is just another layer of spice. So what's the vibe of this? Well, this is goblin. It's a bunch of goblins. So we'll do the goblin vibe. Environment, well, we're in the wilderness. And they're goblins, so maybe we'll do a goblin camp environment, trying to make it think, what would be in a goblin camp. That's the environment. Maybe some of those items will get pulled into here. And then to wrap up the generation, you see these two checkboxes here. So if I have both these off, what AI items being off will do is it will only pull items from official material. It will not use official material to create its own unique flavored items. If I turn this on, it's not going to create Luke Skywalker's lightsaber if you're in a medieval environment, but what it might do is turn a standard short sword into a goblin short sword. So it's going to kind of offer more variety to what the default might offer. So I'm going to leave that on in this case. Same thing with homebrew. Instead of though being like AI generated homebrew, this will pull from community forums. So do I want to pull from the community? Sometimes, you have to be a little more careful with this, I've found, than the AI button, because the AI follows the rules pretty strictly, but sometimes people in the community go crazy. I like to leave it on because it's fun, so you can just manually review what you get, but that's how that works there. So now that we have our prompt fully set up, really customized to us, let's go ahead and click the magic button to generate. And we can change themes while this is generating. You can see it's nice and dynamic there. And it's giving us a animation to show you that's in progress. You're not able to click the button again. You can see that it took a token there. It always costs a token to generate, which is the consumption currency of the website. And that'll be tied to the subscription service. But as you can see, with that nice animation that popped up, as we requested, it generated 15 items that will be a part of this pack of goblins. Looks like there's a little bit of a scaling issue right here. This is new. This is just the title right here, so normally this would be properly sized. But for all intents and purposes, we can just push forward since this is a live demo. So as we can see, pack of goblins, it gave us 15 things in item card format. If we would like, we can pop this in to list format, which is just a little bit of a different view if you prefer it in list format. What doesn't matter what view you're looking at, we have some further options once we look at the items themselves. So before looking at these, you might have spotted this button right here. This will let us, so we just did a pack of goblins. This will use the context here to give it a new name. And it's nice to use in all the scenarios, so grabby glints, but it's especially useful in the vendor scenario where it'll make a nice shop name. Going down into the items themselves, we can click on the items, bring up a pop-up. If we go into the list, same thing. We can edit the items if we would to, say, edit them in specific ways but keep them. We can delete items if we don't like them, or say we like a certain amount of items on this list but not others. We can actually reforge them or regenerate them for a token, and that will let us generate it into a new item. And as you can see, we're actually out of tokens, so if we wanted to generate stuff, we couldn't right now. And that kind of is how we control the economy and kind of make sure that we have good margins. Since it's a sandbox, I can just add more tokens like this. So we could go ahead if we wanted to regenerate multiple items on this list here. It can go ahead and do that. We can add entirely custom items if there's something specific we need. And all of this, of course, functions on the other view as well. If you are editing it in list mode, you can go ahead and make your changes, make your deletions, all of that good stuff. So now that you have your list, we want to save it. We want to export it. Well, we offer all of that. So you can just copy it as text. So if I were to copy it like that, it pastes it as nice readable text, give you the title, the items, descriptions, all of that good stuff. If, say, we didn't want it as plain text, we can export it. And you can do that as raw text again, and that'll give you a text file. Or you can do Markdown, and that'll be nicely formatted for OneNote or, say, Obsidian or anything that uses. You could put that in Discord, and it would be nice and formatted. Or, as you can see, a JSON file like the other sites, a CSV table, or a screenshot. So giving you lots of options on how you can get this out of the system. However, you might want to use this system almost like a book for what you generate. And that's another area we differ, is offering what we call the Hoard. Once I'm done with this, I can click save, sends that little icon towards the Hoard, and we can click into Hoard, and we will see that now that it's gone out of here, we still have it now in our Hoard. It labels it with the date, it gives it the tags that we selected, tells us how many items we have, we can export it, or we can expand this out and we can see that we have everything that we just had, including the edits we made. We can edit them and regenerate them inside of here, add new items, change the label, all of that good stuff. And if we did not like, we could just go ahead and delete it. So that was a generated loot table. And as well as saving it to the Hoard. What about the vendors? How do the vendors difference? And I can go ahead and show us that before we wrap up here. So let's go ahead and make a vendor to showcase that. A magical beaver. So this magical beaver gained intelligence and opened a store in which they sell magic goods. Something a little bit crazy. Let's go ahead and let's try the divination feature, where we're going to automatically fill in the tags using the prompt. And as you can see, a couple seconds later, boom, it's going to have all of these rarities, these item types, quantity. It did a few, but I'm going to bump this up just for the sake of seeing all of them come up. Did some value tags, vibe, environment. It currently won't do custom tags. I've debated on whether allowing it to do that or not. Currently, I'm kind of leaning towards no, but we'll see how that goes. And as of course, we can turn on AI items, homebrew, and once we're happy with it, we'll click generate, and this is where we can really see the difference between a vendor and a loot table. Go ahead and let this animation play. Maybe roll some dice while we're waiting that to finish. There is a little custom animation if you roll a 20 on a 20 dice. Maybe we can get that to show while we wait. Oh, we got a 19. Oh, it's done. All right. So, as you can see, there's this entire new section compared to a loot table. This is still cut off a little bit. There's also an icon difference. So let's go ahead and auto-generate a shop name while we look at the differences. So, first off, you can see that it created a proprietor for this. Very common that a vendor is obviously going to have somebody who is the vendor on top of what the shop might be called. So this lets you fill that in. It creates one automatically, but you can go ahead and easily edit that. So we'll change it to Barnaby the Beaver. And then for location, you can go ahead and set the location, because a nice way to reference and sort through where the stores or vendors might be is where they are. So let's go ahead and do unknown lake. Alrighty, so we have that all configured. As you can see, it chose the name. Again, it's scaled a little weird, but it chose the name Pondrune for the shop name, Pondrune. Alrighty, so just below the location, like I said, the other difference compared to the loot table is, normally a vendor or shop will often offer professional services. Depending on what they do. So what this will do is generate common services that type of merchant will generally offer, as well as kind of the description of it. But on top of this, it allows you to edit these, as well as delete them. So we got rid of those that we didn't want, and that leaves us with, Barnaby the Beaver. He can identify arcane items for 50 gold. And we want a new service, we just click there. Nice and easy. So apart from that, this then functions the same as a loot table. So you have all the loot you requested here. You can sort it, you can search by it, all that good stuff. And let's say somebody bought something or something. That's where I could maybe delete an item. Let's say maybe somebody bought something and he replaced the item with something else. I could regenerate it. And of course, I'm out of tokens, so I'll refill that real quick so we can say he replaced this stock with another item. And that's really where this tool is meant to shine, is offering you this dynamic way to manage these systems without the pain points that normally come with it. So if we save that, you can see it has a different icon than the loot, and we can open this up just like we had it and see everything nice and beautifully. Export it if we'd like, and when we're done with it, we can go ahead and delete it. Also, just to showcase, the search function does work. Showcases a little better when there's more stuff in here. But since we're all done, we'll go ahead and delete that as well. So that is essentially the platform. How the tokens will work is a subscription model. You subscribe, you are given more tokens per day. There is a free kind of weekly amount of tokens given to people so they can test it and see if they like it. As well as in the future possibly having some premium limitations for the subscription. For example, when they save this takes up a little bit of space on a server. So we might make it so for free you can save up to 3 at a time. And if you want to save more, you have to subscribe. So you get the extra tokens, and you can also store as many as you'd like. So there's a couple avenues for revenue we have set up there. And as far as kind of controlling the costs, because we have this token system set up, we have very strict control over API costs. We can pretty much control our margin exactly how we see fit, giving people a certain amount of tokens for a certain amount of cost per month, as well as having an expected cost of free users. In cases we have more free users than we expected, we can set a hard cap on the amount we're allowed to spend on free users. So there's many ways to address that. But like I said, that is pretty much it. That's been Hoard and Haggle. I hope this has been informative. Happy to answer any questions, and I look forward to sharing future updates.